Corey Harrison spent 25 years building an empire at the gold and silver pawn shop, becoming one of the most recognizable faces on television. But in 2024, he did something nobody saw coming. He walked away from it all. The cameras stopped rolling, the contracts weren't renewed, and Big Hos disappeared to Mexico with no intention of ever coming back. What drove him to abandon the family business that made him famous? The answer involves personal tragedy, legal troubles, a dramatic physical transformation, and a life that spiraled in ways fans never knew. This is what really happened to Corey Harrison. Most people know Corey Harrison as Big Hos, the quick-witted negotiator from Pawn Stars. But his journey started long before the cameras arrived. At just 9 years old, Corey was already working at his family's pawn shop in Las Vegas, sweeping floors and learning the business from his grandfather Richard the Old Man Harrison and his father Rick. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was the foundation of everything that would come later. By the time Pawn Stars premiered in 2009, Corey had worked his way up to manager, overseeing 30 employees and handling the shop's day-to-day operations. But respect didn't come easy. The show's entire dynamic revolved around the constant clashes between three generations: Corey fighting to prove himself, Rick questioning his judgment, and the old man dismissing his ideas with brutal honesty. It made for great television, but behind the scenes, the tension was real. In Season 7, Corey reached his breaking point. He told his father and grandfather that if he didn't get a 10% ownership stake in the business, he'd walk away and take a job elsewhere. It was a bold move, one that could have destroyed his relationship with his family. After tense negotiations, Corey settled for a 5% partnership and a raise, with the promise of more equity down the line. He'd finally earned his place at the table, but the battles were far from over. The pawn shop was his life, and for years it seemed like nothing could pull him away from it. Behind the success and the television fame, Corey Harrison was hiding a serious health crisis. By 2010, he had ballooned to 402 pounds, and his body was breaking down. A routine doctor's visit delivered news that terrified him. He was pre-diabetic and needed to go on preventative medication immediately. At just 27 years old, Corey was staring down a future of insulin shots, declining health, and an early grave. Most people would have taken time to think it over, maybe research their options. Not Corey. He drove straight from the doctor's office to a lap band surgery center and asked what it would take to get the procedure done. The problem? He didn't have the money. The surgery cost over $15,000 and his bank account couldn't cover it, so he pulled out 4 credit cards and split the cost between them, burying himself in debt for a chance to save his life. The results were staggering. In the first 6 weeks after surgery, Corey dropped 50 pounds. Within a year, he'd lost 100. He started hitting the gym, picked up boxing, and completely overhauled his diet. By 2014, he'd shed a total of 192 pounds, transforming from 402 to 210. The change was so dramatic that fans didn't recognize him. People would approach him on the street and say, "You look just like that guy from Pawn Stars, but way skinnier and better looking." But the weight loss wasn't just physical. Corey had to confront the habits and mindset that got him to 400 pounds in the first place. It was a mental battle as much as a physical one, and for a while, it seemed like he'd won. While Corey's health improved, his personal life was falling apart. In 2009, he married his high school sweetheart, Charlene, in what seemed like a fairy tale romance. But the pressure of fame, long hours at the shop, and constant public scrutiny took their toll. By 2015, the marriage was over, and Corey was dealing with his first major public failure outside of business. He didn't stay single for long. In May 2017, Corey married Karina "Kiki" Harrison in a ceremony that fans celebrated on social media. But the second marriage lasted even shorter than the first, just 1 year. By September 2018, Corey and Kiki's divorce was finalized. Corey publicly cited competitive work schedules as the reason, claiming the split was amicable. But those close to him knew there was more to the story. The demands of filming Pawn Stars, managing the shop, and maintaining a public image had created a lifestyle that was impossible to balance with a healthy relationship. Just 1 month after his divorce was finalized, Corey's son Richard Benjamin Harrison was born in October 2018. Suddenly, he was a father navigating co-parenting with an ex-wife while still trying to keep his career on track. The responsibility weighed heavily on him, and friends noticed he was changing. The confident, wisecracking Big Hos from television was becoming more withdrawn, more guarded, 2 failed marriages, a newborn son, and the relentless grind of reality TV had left Corey exhausted. But the worst was still ahead of him, and the next few years would test him in ways he never imagined. On September 8, 2023, at 2 a.m., Corey Harrison's life took another dark turn. A Las Vegas police officer spotted his white Ford F-250 swerving between lanes near Main Street and Charleston Boulevard, drifting into the bike lane multiple times. The officer hit his lights, but Corey was slow to pull over, forcing the cop to use his loudspeaker to order him to stop. When Corey finally did, he already had his driver's license in hand, as if he knew what was coming. The officer immediately noticed the signs: bloodshot, droopy eyes, a blank stare, and a strong smell of alcohol coming from the truck. Corey explained that he'd just flown in from Minnesota, where he'd been filming Pawn Stars Do America, and claimed he'd only had 1 drink on the flight 7 hours earlier. He also mentioned that his truck sometimes pulled to the right, and that he was dealing with a leg infection from poison ivy, which affected his ability to walk straight. None of it mattered. Corey failed the field sobriety test. The officer asked him to provide a breath sample, but when Corey hesitated and mentioned calling his lawyer, the cop informed him they'd get a warrant for his blood if he refused. Corey eventually agreed, but the breathalyzer at the jail was broken, so they drew his blood instead. He was booked on a charge of driving under the influence and spent 8 hours in the Las Vegas City Jail before being released. The arrest made headlines immediately, and fans were stunned. This wasn't Corey's first brush with the law. He'd been arrested in 2011 for battery and resisting arrest after a bar fight in Big Bear Lake, but this felt different. This was a man unraveling. In early 2025, Rick Harrison dropped a bombshell. Pawn Stars was no longer under contract with the History Channel. After 23 seasons and 700 episodes broadcast in 150 countries, the show that made the Harrison family famous was on indefinite hiatus. "We're waiting to see when we might resume filming or what will come next on the horizon," Rick said in a statement. "Here's to Pawn Stars 2.0. But Corey wasn't waiting around to see what came next. By June 2024, just weeks after filming wrapped on season 23, he made a decision that shocked everyone. He moved to Tulum, Mexico, and made it clear he had no intention of returning to Las Vegas or the show. "At this stage of the game, we're all playing a character on Pawn Stars," Corey told reporters during a phone interview from Tulum. "I can't play another season of 41-year-old me pretending to be 23. The statement was revealing. For years, Corey had been locked into a role, a persona that no longer fit who he was. Big Hos, the cocky, impulsive dealmaker, was a character created for television. The real Corey Harrison was tired, burned out, and ready for a new chapter. He wasn't in any contract renewal talks with the History Channel, and he made it clear he was done. Meanwhile, Rick and Chumlee launched a podcast called Pawn After Dark in January 2025, with no involvement from Corey. "They told me what they are doing and I said, all right, cool, I'll pack it up. I'm moving to Mexico. You guys have a fun time," Corey explained. "My dad will work till the day he collapses. That's just not me." Corey Harrison didn't just leave Las Vegas. He left everything behind. In Tulum, a beach town on Mexico's Caribbean coast known for its Mayan ruins and turquoise waters, Corey found something he hadn't experienced in years: peace. He's developing a barbecue joint in the area, reconnecting with a passion for food and hospitality that had nothing to do with haggling over antiques or performing for cameras. "I've gotten to be friends with the mayor of Tulum, Diego," Corey said in an interview. "The police come by once or twice a day to check on things, get photos with me. I never thought I'd be hanging out with cops and politicians in Mexico. I figured my life would always go a different way. It's a strange twist. The guy who got arrested for a DUI is now on friendly terms with local law enforcement in a foreign country, building relationships and starting over." Corey's social media shows a man who's genuinely happy. Photos of beach sunsets, casual dinners, and time spent with friends paint a picture of someone who's finally living on his own terms. There are no production schedules, no family drama, and no pressure to be someone he's not. He's still close with Chumlee and occasionally sees his dad, but the days of working side by side at the pawn shop are over. "The past few years have been rough," Corey admitted. "I'm ready to move on." And he has. Tulum isn't just a vacation, it's his new home, his fresh start, and his way of reclaiming a life that reality television nearly destroyed. Corey Harrison's story isn't just about leaving a TV show. It's about a man who spent his entire life living for everyone else. He worked for his family's business since he was 9 years old, fought for respect, transformed his body, survived personal tragedy, and became one of the most recognizable faces on reality television. But somewhere along the way, he lost himself. The character of Big Hos became a cage, and the pressures of fame, family expectations, and relentless filming schedules took everything from him, his health, his marriages, and eventually his brother. Moving to Mexico wasn't an escape, it was survival. Corey chose himself over the empire, and in doing so, he found something more valuable than any pawn shop deal: freedom. Whether Pawn Stars returns or not, one thing is certain: Corey Harrison won't be part of it. And for the first time in decades, he's okay with that.